At this point in my life, I have played every single NES game ever made, so I feel pretty comfortable making this list. Now, I don't know if it's impressive that I played every single NES game, or it's kinda sad. I guess it depends on the company you're bragging to. If I say this at a game store, it's impressive. If I say it on a date, kinda sad. If I say it in a gaming video like this one, impressive. If I say it at my uncle's funeral, kinda sad. Anyway, here's my personal list of my top 5 favorite NES games of all time. And please realize there might be games you love that just aren't on this list. In fact, there are a lot of great Nintendo games that I love that didn't make the cut, simply because I feel the games on this list are slightly better than those games. Coming in at number 5 on my list is Startropics. It is set in this beautiful tropical paradise, but most of your gameplay takes place in the ruins of this tropical paradise. You are equipped with a yo-yo, which has unlimited use, but once in a while you also get other weapons to help you out, like, say, fire. The game has an overworld and a bunch of people in towns to interact with. They basically progress the story for you. Startropics isn't what it looks like at first. It's not really an action game. It's more of a action puzzle game. You basically have to progress from one screen to the next. Sometimes this is done by killing all the enemies on screen, but other times it's done by finding a button by continually jumping on these green rocks. This button oftentimes opens a door, or it just explodes a hole in the wall. That's the only way for you to progress. The puzzle element comes into play with how you find your way around the buttons. Sometimes the game isn't just about jumping on all the buttons, but jumping on the buttons in a certain order, or actually trying to strategically find your way somewhere by jumping on these button platforms, which isn't always very easy. Startropics is fun, addictive, has a great atmosphere, and just a ton of really awesome gameplay, and that's why it's number 5 on my list. Coming in at number 4 is Castlevania 3 Draculas Curse. It improved on the first Castlevania and greatly improved on the second Castlevania. It's ultimately just a game that polished up all the great gameplay from the previous Castlevania games on the Nintendo and got rid of some bad elements. The game has a great and scary mood where you're going through this deadly and evil castle, fighting various undead creatures like skeletons and all sorts of evil bats, and of course there's a ton of platforming and walking up staircases. You have all these different weapons you can get on top of the whip you already have, and of course there's a ton of gameplay. That's one of the reasons I love Startropics and Castlevania 3 so much, is because the gameplay is really fun and addictive, but there's also a lot of it to be had. There's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of these rooms and boss fights, and it's just satisfying when you complete a level because you've done so much and killed so many enemies. And of course the controls are really smooth and responsive, especially for Nintendo, which historically didn't have the best controls in a lot of its games. The only thing that's kind of counterintuitive is going up and down the staircases. You don't go up staircases by pressing up and left or right, and then down staircases by pressing down and left or right. You just press up and down, even though you're walking diagonally instead of straight up. In today's games, up means climbing a ladder, not going upstairs, obviously. But honestly, you get used to this minor infraction pretty quickly. I'm talking about in the first few minutes of gameplay, you never think about it again. This is just a great game, and I think the best Castlevania game for the Nintendo. Coming in at number 3 is Super Mario Bros. 3, the quintessential platforming game of the Nintendo era. Super Mario Bros. 1 was fantastic. Super Mario Bros. 2 was a bit weird, but still a pretty good game. And then Super Mario Bros. 3 comes out and blows both of those good games out of the water. Much like Castlevania did with the first 2 Castlevania games, Super Mario Bros. Took all the bad aspects of Super Mario Bros. And improved on them. And really, there weren't any bad aspects. So what Super Mario Bros. 3 really did is improved on the already good aspects and made them great. This game basically took Super Mario Bros. 3 and gave us more of that same content, but improved everything. Smoother controls, more things to do, better graphics, more things to explore, more hidden gems, more levels, more everything, more fun to be had. Super Mario Bros. 3 is Super Mario Bros. 2.0. I think in the Nintendo era, games were the exact opposite of movies, where the third in the movie series is almost always horrible, but in gaming, the third is almost always better. This is just a great platformer, and you can argue Super Mario Bros. 3 is the best 2D platformer of all time, and not just of the Nintendo era. What can you say about Contra that hasn't already been said by anyone who has ever lived? It's fucking Contra. Come on, homie. Possibly the best run-and-gun game ever. You shoot waves upon waves of enemy soldiers. The controls are so smooth. There's a ton of different weapons, all placating to any playstyle you desire. The only problem with Contra is that it is rhino balls hard. One-hit death, a ton of enemies, enemy bullets and projectiles coming at you from all angles. I mean, this game is really a test of skill. It's why people use the term Nintendo hard. It is not a reference to some kind of video game porno, despite what you might have thought. Link Diggler stars in Nintendo hard. Hey, I heard you girls were looking for some rupees. Contra is just plain awesome, but don't take my word for it. Grow a pair and play it. Coming in at number 1 as my all-time favorite NES game is 1943 The Battle of Midway. It's kind of a simple game, yes, but I've had more fun with this Nintendo game than any other Nintendo game ever. In fact, just recording some footage for this video made me kind of rethink even making this video. I actually thought for a second, and I thought, maybe I'll take this free time that I have to make this video and just play 1943 and forget about the video altogether. I kind of decided against it because the video is already halfway done. But still, the second I get home tonight, I'm gonna play and finish this game once again for the umpteenth time. You improve your plane by buying various power-ups. Subsequently, you can also pick up various power-ups on your deadly sky massacre. You can also pick up energy. Some people think of it as fuel, but it's an E, so I just call it energy. This is your hit points, but it's also somewhat your magic points, because it's also eaten up as you use specials, and also it's eaten up as you just fly through the level. It's basically your life force. My favorite strategy in 1943 is just to be pure offense. That's why the first thing I do is completely max out my shooting power. Then I focus on other things like improving my defense so I can take more damage, improving how much fuel I have, and so on and so forth. But I just love to be able to kill a boss in a few hits, even if it means dying in a few hits myself, or running out of fuel halfway through a level. This isn't just my favorite NES game, it's also hands down the best scrolling shooter ever. I absolutely love it. It's simple enough where you can pick up and play it, but it's infinitely complex with the different strategies you can implement, simply because you decide what your ship is good at. Ultimately, everyone's ship is going to be great at everything towards the end of the game. But this game, much like life, is the journey, not the destination, and it's all about what your ship is like in the middle of the gameplay, not at the end of it. The controls are super smooth, there's a ton of enemy airplanes and ships you're gonna destroy, there's boss battles, and the gameplay is like crack. This is not just my favorite NES game, but it's also probably the most addictive NES game. You will not be able to put this game down once you start playing it. This game is like getting abducted by aliens. It's like you start playing it and out of nowhere 3 hours pass and you don't know where the time went. I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's my list of my personal favorite NES games. Let me know what you think deserves to be on this list. And don't just say like Mario and Zelda. Obviously, everyone knows those games are great. How about mentioning some underrated classics that you absolutely love and are your favorite Nintendo games that no one played or no one would think of putting in the top 5? Let me know about those games. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends. Now is the time on Sprockets when we dance.